Okay, in order for us to be able to make the action-oriented approach alive in the classroom, we can carry out very interesting and engaging projects called units of action. What are these? They are scenarios of learning through action, a strategy that allows students to come up with their own strategies to find solutions. It's a mission that is related to real life and students are supposed to achieve. Alright, now let's have a look at this example. Okay, for sure, you might say, well, this is too high for kids. However, there is also a way for us to do a unit of action with children in primary school. Let's go through the following example. This is a unit of action for third graders. As you could see, those were scenarios. Students had a mission to achieve, and they need to be very active in order to achieve the mission. Why? Because they cannot achieve the mission without actively and practically using the language. Let's go through the background of these units of action. As you could see, units of action were not only about communicating, they were also about acting. Students needed to act, to do, to be very active. This is why we say that communication is in service of the action. This means that communicating is probably not enough. Students need to be able to perform actions and make decisions. It's not only about the language anymore, it's about life itself and being able to cope with it. When students are given a mission, they get the feeling of action. The mission sets the mood of achieving a goal, because that's the idea, that students accomplish such a mission. Of course, the mission is not going to be simple. This is why students have the situation of finding solutions by themselves. They come up with their own strategies in order to achieve the mission. That's the idea, that they make their own decisions and, most importantly, that they support them and tell everyone why they chose such a way. That is a strategy, a chosen line of action to address a situation. The benefit that students gain from being given units of action or missions to accomplish is that they develop competence in their language level and they mobilize. Now that you know this, you're probably going to ask us, but hey, what is a competence? And what is mobilizing? Let us now go through these two concepts. Nowadays, competence is a concept about which so many pedagogists have given a definition. It has been somehow controversial because at the end of the day, that is the discussion. Who can be considered to be competent and who cannot? Based on the research done to create this project by Angelica Cordova back in 2013, a competence is a sum. It's the sum of knowledge and skills that students use in order to solve a specific situation. Here is when the discussion rises, right? Why? Let's see. Knowledge is not enough. We can know grammar without being that good at using it. Skills are very important. They are what students need to be trained and to train themselves at. But still, we need more than knowledge and skills training. We need to take into account the personal traits that everybody has. It's about knowing each other, but most importantly, knowing ourselves. When personality traits are contemplated in the competence, we realize that everybody can be competent in a different way. Shy students, for example, can be competent too. This makes us think competence in a broader way without having a too narrow conception of it. All in all, that is what competence is: the sum of knowledge, skills, and personal characteristics that allow a person to perform actions to achieve a task. It can be a task related to language, or it can also be a task related to life. That means that students scale up the pyramid because they are not at the basis anymore. The basis would be knowledge, which means grammar. They are in the point of combining everything in order to achieve competence. They go all the scale up from knowing how to do, and being competent, to pertinently putting knowledge, skills, and personal traits in action. Have a look at the following definition and take some seconds to think about it. Do you agree or disagree? Being competent supposes to be able to put abilities into action in a pertinent way when dealing with a problematic situation to be solved or a complex task to carry out. Now, what about mobilizing? Mobilizing refers to the ability of using everything that we know. This is our invitation, our call to help students to use everything that they know and everything that they can do. In this sense, students are guided to actively and practically use all of their knowledge and skills by seeking and implementing different strategies, which means different lines of action, that help them to develop competence. For further information, please go through Chapter 5 of the Common European Framework of Reference. It is very important to mention that units of action have a cultural dimension. Let's include in our units of action cultural aspects that students can not only explore, but actually raise awareness upon. As you know, culture is a wide spectrum. It not only refers to practices and to food, it goes beyond. It even touches on matters related to geography, music, sports, languages, literature, visual arts, theater plays, and the way humans interact with nature, the world, and their surroundings. Okay, now that we know what a unit of action is, and also their background and their purpose and the pedagogical benefits for our beloved Bethlemites students in Latin America, we're going to move on to the structure of a unit of action and its very specific parts. A unit of action has the following: a mission, a product, restrictions, and communicative tasks. But don't worry, let's go one by one. The mission is the big task that students are to achieve. That means a goal that is close to real life. In order to give missions to students, we suggest to use verbs that are not related to communication. For example, prepare, design, survey, research, gather, illustrate, experiment, record, motivate, and so on. As you could see, these were verbs that were different from listening, speaking, talking, reading, which are communicative verbs. That is the mission, a social and complex action to be achieved by following a communicative process. Now, as to the product, it is very clear. It is a concrete result that students obtain from achieving the task. It's a concrete evidence, whether it is oral, written, or even physical. In terms of the restrictions, these are specific details to make the task challenging. Those little obstacles, those conditions that make the achievement of the mission less easy. And finally, communicative tasks. They are those language steps that students need to follow in order to achieve the mission. Here, we do involve communicative verbs like listening, reading, writing this or that, speaking, interviewing, and so on. Here, it is very important to mention that skills need to vary. First, students need input so that they can produce output. That is to say, that students need to be exposed to language through listening and reading so that we can ask pieces of writing or oral productions from them. Now, here are some tips about how to provide instructions for a unit of action that has all of its parts. Do you identify these parts in the units of action that we showed at the beginning? Let's see. Once students have done their units of action, it's important that they have a space to reflect upon their own process. Let's call it a metacognitive moment. Here, we can ask students questions such as the following ones. Of course, you can adapt them depending on the need. First, what did you know before carrying out the unit of action? Did it help you? How? Second, what did you not know before doing the unit of action? Third, what difficulties did you have to face? Did you solve them? If so, how? Fourth, what do you wish you had known to perform better in the unit of action? We hope that both units of action and the action-oriented approach leave you with very meaningful contributions and ideas to bring real-world situations closer to what students learn in the classroom. Benefit from presenting the results from these projects to the school. Since units of action are about making everything as real as possible, a real audience would be the whole community at school. Now, it's your turn. It's your turn to create a unit of action.